Live test test. I feel like my microphone is a little far away. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're back again. We're going to continue to be back constantly, to tell you the truth. Good morning. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your early Sunday morning. We're an hour early today because I have to go to church here in about 45 to 50 minutes, but I wanted to make sure I got on the stream here to talk to everybody. So we have even breaking updates that are occurring as we speak. So as we're kicking this live stream off, we have new information that's coming in. And we haven't even fully realized the extent of the reconnaissance data. We have recon aircraft inside of Hurricane Beryl at this time, pulling interior data on the storm, dropping their drop sons, their eye wall sons, or their eye sons into the system. And we're hopefully going to get an even better look at what the storm is doing right now and over the next 24, 48, 72, and 96 hours. Hopefully, now that we're going to get reconnaissance data in from the aircraft, the Hurricane Center aircraft out there, we'll actually start to see our model data dialed in over the next couple of updates, particularly at 12Z. 12Z, our hurricane models should have all the P3 data pulled in from our recon crew to plug into our HAFs, our HWRF, and our HMON, especially the HAFs A and B. So I want to say that once we get to 12Z here in the next 3 or 4 hours, the 12 Zulu data is going to be a little bit more concrete and solidified because the computers will actually have raw data that they're getting on that recon aircraft to digest and interpolate. But thank you all very much for joining. We're going to jump right in. We're not going to waste any time. Good morning to everybody. You know who you are. You're always returning. I love to have you guys. You're a wonderful audience, and we're going to get right into this. So we're going to jump ahead because we just got the 8 a.m. advisory. There it is. We just made history again. Actually, I lied. We're getting close to making history again. We're on track to make history again. I'm sorry. We made history yesterday in terms of furthest, most eastern forming hurricane at this point in the hurricane season. We beat the 1933. You can more or less say we're witnessing a 100-year event. There's that 100-year flood, I believe it's called, and now we are seeing a 100-year hurricane-style event with Hurricane Beryl. We deepened down to a 75-mile-an-hour hurricane by about 2 or 5 p.m. yesterday afternoon, and now we are at major hurricane status as of 8 a.m. this morning. Winds up to 115 miles an hour, gusting more than likely to Category 4 strength. Minimum pressure is deepening fast. It is very rapidly deepening. We have seen this thing bomb out about approximately 40 millibars in the last 24 hours. So this is a very serious situation, and you can see that they are announcing it as the same, now a very dangerous Category 3 hurricane. Life-threatening winds and storm surge expected in the Windward Islands beginning early Monday. We have seen a bit more consensus in our overall track guidance, which is good but bad. It looks like Grenada, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines are going to be in a direct line of this system for sure. Barbados, you're still hanging out to the north over the eye wall, is going to track, which could be a good thing given the compact nature of this system. We'll have to keep a very close eye on. We are getting close to closing time. Today's the day. You need to be locked up and ready to rock and roll and ride this thing out. You're going to have about 6 to 8 hours of very intense conditions, and then it'll be all over. Remember, these things are tall, they're small, they're very compact, so things will kick off very quickly, but then they should end about just as fast. This thing is still racing off to the west at 21 miles an hour, so it's not going to hang around. It's not going to pull an Ian or a Francis to where you were underneath these conditions for an extended period of time. It's going to be rough, but it is going to get in, it's going to get out, and then you're going to be back on track. We have Invest 94L still giving a 50% chance. We're going to get some recon data on this feature as well. It does look like it's becoming a tropical depression if we were to look at the satellite image. So we'll talk about that a little bit. We're not going to go too in-depth because, like I said, I am on a time crunch and I want to get the most critical information out to you guys. And then, thankfully, just as we had mentioned yesterday, we officially have AL96 on the game board. Obviously, this is way far out there. We're back in the same setup. We're back in the saddle in terms of where Beryl was back about 4 to 5 days ago, but this is the one I'm telling you guys is going to be our wild card, and I'll show you exactly why here in a moment. Here's our latest guidance. This is going to be the 5 o'clock advisory track, and you can see the wind core is small. We're probably still going to realize tropical storm, if not very low-end hurricane-style conditions for Barbados. It is going to pass to your south on track. Currently, like I said, we are right in between Grenada, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, and then Martinique is just to the north here, but you're going to still have to pay close attention to it because of the wiggling and wobbling that could occur. But our primary impact is going to be right in through here based on the current trajectory and if we were to extrapolate it out. The problem with this is the timing, we're still good. We're not changing the timing at all. We're still looking at maybe 4 to 6 a.m., the worst conditions barreling through. I feel bad saying that, no pun intended, Barbados. Problem is now, look at the forecast. We have maximum sustained winds of 130 miles an hour with wind gusts above Category 5 conditions. Now, this will be a Category 4 on approach. Believe it or not, people will give it a lot of shade. People will give them a lot of flack. It's crazy to see that not only are we learning lessons with this storm, but we're learning lessons with our models as well. Everybody from the jump start was swearing by the euro, swearing by the euro, swearing by the euro, and of all models, it was the GFS, the H-Wharf, and the HAFS B that have been doing the best with this system. So it goes to show this storm is teaching us a lot of lessons. We have to really open up our perspectives. Meteorologists, weather enthusiasts, weather forecasters, tropical meteorologists, everybody across the spectrum, even someone who just loves to look at weather as a hobby, we got to open up our perspectives, and this is a very eye-opening storm, not only in terms of what's happening in terms of the history books, but just, open-mindedness. I've been saying it again and again. We've been stuck in the ball and chain of climatology, history, and yada, yada, yada. It's not going to happen, and it's happening. It's right here. It's on the verge of happening. We're watching the clock now. And everybody and their mother loves to say, King Euro, if it's not here, it's not happening, etc., etc. The models don't know. And believe it or not, it's as if they've taken enough of a verbal beating from us metaphorically, and the GFS nailed this. The HAFS B, which is usually a little bit more aggressive, nailed this. The H-Wharf that everybody loves to laugh at, oh shoot, the H-Wharf's going for a Cat 4. So this is a very big problem, guys. Barbados, you're going to be just to the immediate south of a Category 4 hurricane with internal conditions that are reminiscent of a borderline Cat 5. And when I say that is, we're going to be at sustained winds of 130 miles an hour. But the occasional gusts that could do some serious and some significant, I was going to put catastrophic in the title and on my thumbnail, but I didn't want to go that far, even though this is a real thing. We're going to be seeing some pretty immense and dangerous conditions for at least 6 to 8 hours. You're going to have to work a full-time day, if you will, with this system pushing through your area with winds in excess of 150, 160 miles an hour on occasion, the gusts, the eye wall core. Just beyond St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada, we're still looking at a potentially either strengthening or sustaining Category 4 hurricane. So you guys are going to feel the brunt of it. If you look at the wind core back here and you extrapolate it out, in fact, I wonder if we can we pull that up on this interactive map? No, it doesn't look like we can. Sometimes the maps will allow us. Can I? Am I allowed to go forward in time on this? This is an interactive map. I guess not. Unfortunately, I wanted to show you guys, if you extrapolate the wind field forward, as it strengthens, it is going to get a little bit bigger. But if you notice, where we're on track for right now, based on what that system's size looks like internally, there's going to be your hurricane force winds, and your more dangerous wind field is going to be right in through here. So the positives, it's a very compact system. Yes, we've definitely mentioned that a bunch of times. The negative impact for our folks in the immediate line of fire from it is you're going to have very intense conditions. That's how these systems operate. Sometimes, to tell you the truth, the wind impacts with the larger systems, albeit the same intensity, feel very different from these smaller systems, and that's why in meteorology they ask you to learn physics to an extensive amount, especially if you're going into a more mathematical meteorological position. You need to know your calculus, your vector calculus, your physics, your advanced physics, and all the different parameters that go into both of those. And in this case, we're looking at the physical standpoint of this system. It's going to be a very violently rotating column of low pressure as it works its way through. But again, the key takeaway here is regardless of the conditions, the timing is ready to rock. The timing is locked in at this point. We're still going with 2 a.m. It's on approach for Barbados. And then shortly thereafter, around 2 p.m., so around 10 to noon, is when the worst conditions are going to be settling in for our windward islands just beyond Barbados. And we still need to watch out in Trinidad and Tobago because we are on the southern periphery of this system. Depending on how expansive it is, you can still realize tropical storm conditions. You can see we have the tropical storm warning issued here, so they are expecting a little bit of bleed over for sure. Here's 96L. So I wanted to get on this real quick because even though the satellite image doesn't look very good right here, it's embedded within the ITCZ. This is going to be your intertropical convergence zone. Our wave is somewhere in through here, starting to really exhibit some pretty gratuitous convection and moisture content with it. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is, again, the wild card. Check this out. So it looks like we're getting closer to being dialed in for Beryl. We're getting closer. At least we know most of the puzzle between here and here now. It's pretty certain at this point that Jamaica and the Cayman Islands are going to feel something from this, for sure. Tommy, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never said Florida was going to get a hurricane at all. Please don't start with the trolling. Please do not. This is a very serious live stream. I'm not going to let people derail this, so please don't start with that. I never said anything about Florida getting a hurricane. You, the one, been asking whether or not Florida is going to get a hurricane, and we've all been telling you in unison, we just need to keep our eyes open. We don't know. So I don't know who out here is saying that Florida is going to get a hurricane, or who in the chat you're referring to, but it definitely isn't me. That's for certain. So please, we're not going to start going in that realm. This is not speculation time. This is all hands on deck time. This is where we sit in preliminary guidance for Invest 96. And this is why I've been saying this is a wild card system back behind it. Wild card in every sense of the terminology as well. We don't even know if it's going to develop. We really don't. But if it does develop, it's going to be a tricky system. We're looking at the exact same diffluence in our ensembles and our track guidance as we saw with 95, now Beryl. Beryl does need to be on the watch as it comes closer to the Yucatan and the Bay of Campeche, because we're really seeing an uptick in Louisiana and Texas members. So you guys need to be paying close attention to this. There could still be some wiggling and wobbling. Nothing is set in stone because we still haven't even made it through the islands yet. But Beryl needs to be monitored, and this one needs to be monitored closely as well. Not only for us, but for the Lesser Antilles who are about to do battle with Beryl here in the next 12 to 18 hours. And then from there, all bets are off. It goes crazy. And you can see the general thinking is something coming up like this. And there is a window of opportunity for that to happen, and I'll show you guys as we go down the road. Here's a big picture look at everything that's going on. We can see all of our players on the game board. There's a 94, looking kind of tropical. Definitely not falling apart as a number of our models indicated, and it's a shame it's not getting enough emphasis put on it right now because it could possibly be sneaking into depression, if not very weak named storm status as it makes its way towards Mexico. Obviously, the elephant in the room, there's major hurricane now, Beryl, for sure. Very gorgeous storm at this point. Entirely symmetrical. It's got the perfect symmetrical buzzsaw appearance to it, and that eye is staring us in the face, just like we talked about last night. Excellent difluent anticyclonic outflow on all quadrants. This thing is sealed up, and it's going to take a lot to bring this thing down, and I think that's why a lot of our models are thinking we're no longer looking at that enormous decrease in intensity. For the longest time, our models were thinking Cat 4 and then tropical storm. That's no longer the case. So Jamaica and the Cayman Islands need to be prepared for a potential Category 1, low-end Category 2 hurricane coming your way. There is still going to be some mid-level wind shear out here that could try to topple the vortex, albeit, in my opinion, with as aggressive as a system we have here, that is definitely, it's going to take a lot to beat it down for all intents and purposes. And here is 96L. You can see it back in the background here. It is starting to get some action going. And again, it's so far to the south that our dry, dusty air is not really playing a role on it. So we're going to have to pay close attention about that. Here's a look at the visible satellite for out there over the tropics, and once again, you can see just this amazing-looking hurricane here, and please don't take that the wrong way. I'm not here trying to exude that this is a good thing, but when I say amazing is this thing is going to continue to go. It's going to keep going. It's going to keep going. It's blowing its top even as we speak. You can see the eye made itself readily apparent, and we have really good eye subsidence happening. And what I mean by that is if you look at a skew T for the eye, when you see that subsidence, that means that this system is really aggressively rotating around itself, and we're getting that sinking air into the eye, and that's how it ends up filling in like that. You can kind of see it clearly. When it opens up, that shows you that all that latent heat exchange and those vertical velocities in the core of the system are sinking down rapidly, getting sucked down towards the surface. And that's what gives you that eye there feature here you can see on satellite. And then down here we have 96. 96 looking fairly decent for itself as a wave. We're starting to see some spinach with it. So I truly think, even though, again, the Euro, doesn't give it a big vote of confidence. I think we're going to have either Chris or Debbie here if 94 doesn't steal the show here in a second. And then finally, I wanted to show you up close at just how crazy this system is looking and how much it's undergoing development and continuing to deepen. You can see there goes the eye, and I want to stop it right as the sun comes up. We get a look. There we go. I wanted to stop it with the sun angle so we can use the sun to our advantage here. Look at how vigorous of a system this is. Very intense core of eye wall convection, and you can see just immense and very, very aggressive cyclonic rotation around the center of that system. The feeder bands are extremely healthy. You can see a whole bunch of them here on the satellite image. You can draw them in as much as you want. You can just have fun kind of doodling them in. We have tons of feeder banding activity. This is a rapidly intensifying storm in every sense of the word. I hope you're still not looking at that as a buzzword, because in this case it is an accurate representation of what's happening, and it's going to get stronger. I'm very curious to see what recon data find. We could possibly see even stronger winds as the recon aircraft is circulating the system. And I just wanted to pull up one more time a little bit of a look at the Weather Nerds satellite. I wanted to zoom in, but I don't think I'm going to waste you guys' time, because honestly, you get the picture. You definitely get the picture here. Now, the key here is, if you look at the Weather Nerds satellite here, here's Barbados. We're still at a fairly low latitude here, and we're not gaining very much latitude. So this thing would have to immediately start to lift towards the west-northwest to play a major role on your weather out there in Barbados. Trinidad and Tobago, you are definitely going to see wraparound feeder band activity, so you'll need to watch for embedded, isolated situations where you do get 35, 45 mile an hour winds in those feeder bands, because they are rotating in of themselves. And it looks like Barbados, your conditions are going to start going downhill over the next 3 to 6 hours. I would say probably 6 hours maximum. And we're going to start seeing the initial feeder banding, and the clouds are going to build over. You're going to lose the sunshine, and then it's all hands on deck, and it's going to continue to go downhill from there. Here's a look at our guidance here. I'll go ahead and zoom out a little bit more. This is our GEFS ensemble guidance, and you can see that very, very widespread in terms of not only where Beryl goes, but wherever AL96 decides to go. These are going to be your ensemble members for 96. This is going to be for Beryl. And see, I'm noticing all of our models are starting to indicate that the Gulf coastline is not out of the woods here. A couple days ago, there were a few folks mentioning this is not going to be a Gulf of Mexico storm. It's going to be a Yucatan. And well, this is why we don't seal ourselves into a corner. You don't put yourself in a corner, because a lot of the big names out there who were saying that the tropics are going to be closed, they're eating their words. And for folks out there who thought they could forecast the hurricane from way back here, are probably going to be eating their words as well. So not a good sign, not a good look at all. We can switch over. I believe we should by now have our 6Z European ensembles in. Let's see. Maybe we won't. It's still a little early. I forget we're doing our live stream a little bit earlier. It doesn't even look like this updated. There we go. Nope, we're still looking at yesterday. So we'll take a look at the 0Z ensembles from the European model. And you can see the European model is slowly starting to build back towards the north as well for the stronger iterations. The general thinking is still somewhere down in through here for the European model, but the Euro has been very, very struggling. It's been very troublesome with nailing down the intensity of this system. So I would say this entire area still needs to be on watch for what this system is going to do, especially as another trough begins to work its way in over the greater United States, the northern central plains and the Great Lakes. That's going to help to push our ridge off towards the east, and it's a big, big, big game of timing. It is a big, big game of timing for sure that we need to pay attention to. You can also see, I wanted to pull this up. I used this a lot for Lee last year. We can finally use it for another major hurricane. And I wanted to show you the ensemble means for all of our computer models for Beryl. So you can see the general thinking still keeps it out there over the Central Caribbean, very, very, very close grays to Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. That's a problem. The center may not pass over your area, but you're going to get the most violently portion, or the most violent quadrant of this hurricane if it still holds on to intensity. At this point, we're leaning more towards 75% chance it will, 25% chance it won't. All of our models are thinking this is still going to be a low-end hurricane as it continues to whip through the Caribbean. So Cayman Islands, Jamaica, even the southern periphery of Haiti, Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, you guys should be paying attention, because there is still a number of spaghetti models that bring it close to your shoreline, to where the coastline especially could see some inundation from coastal flooding, very heavy and rough surf, rip currents, and those tropical storm force conditions. From there, take a look at our ensemble thinking. So I know there's some folks in the chat still mentioning it's too early to know, but this is a glaring indication that you are not out of the woods if you reside in Louisiana and especially Texas. Texas seems to be a bit more of a realistic bet, depending on the timing of when our ridge gets nudged towards the east. But the general guidance here is opening up back towards the east. So that is something we need to pay close attention to. It's far out. I know that's been the conclusion and the key takeaway for everybody here in the United States, but nevertheless, this is a rapidly evolving situation. It's evolving as we speak, and it's evolving with all this fresh data. And in fact, with the new data we're going to get from our radio sondes and our drop sondes in the hurricane, we might see this get refined even better. So I'm not sounding the alarm, but this has been trending for a little while now. It's been trending for about 24 hours that we're going to see a little bit of a bait and switch as it comes into the BOC, and it could make a run towards Texas, Louisiana. So you need to be watching this. You need to be watching this closely. Don't take your eyes off of it, please. Do not. In Dominican Republic, you do not need to worry too much. We're going to keep this thing hopefully off towards your south, but you're going to realize some generalized impacts from it, and then we have to watch 96 back upstream of that. While we're on here, as a matter of fact, I'll show you what the ships is doing with 96. And the reason I bring 96 into it and use the ships is because the ships, once again, did fairly decent with Beryl. It's been doing okay. This is what we're looking at right now in terms of our ship's forecast. You can see that it is anticipating tropical storm strength and moving it up towards the north. This would indicate a huge weakness in the ridge. I really want to say that this is going to change. I really do anticipate, given how stubborn of a mid-level and an upper-level ridge we've had over the central and western Atlantic, I don't really think it's going to go that far to the north. The intensity is what I want us to pay attention here because this model, alongside the GFS and our other hurricane models, have been verifying fairly decently. So it's definitely something worth watching about, for sure. Here's a look at our vorticity signature. Just wanted to pull this up real quickly right there. Boom. You can see Beryl right there, and then AL96 is starting to get that little bit of a trademark vorticity signature as well. So it is slowly but surely beginning to build back. It's slowly beginning to put itself together. All right, here we go. Let's get into our hurricane models so we can talk specifics. Now, the hurricane models have really not changed very much, and in fact, to tell you the truth, once again, the HAFS B model is doing wonderful. So I'm really beginning to put my eggs into the H-Wharf, the HAFS B, and ironically the GFS. And the only reason I'm doing that is because these models have dominated this system from start to finish. The Euro was extremely finicky. The Icon didn't care for it. It still doesn't really care for it until now, and we already have a major hurricane out there. The Canadian model is being the Canadian model, so, you know, it was highlighting it, but the intensity has been kind of off, so, I mean, it's just being the Canadian model. The GFS has been doing a phenomenal job with this. So for everybody out there throwing shade and beating up the GFS with your words, it's doing a good job here. It's actually smothering and putting the Euro in its place, to tell you the truth. And if you look at our latest information here, this is 15Z, so this is about 11 o'clock. You go back to 12 Zulu, 975. Even the HAFS model technically is under forecasting where we sit right now. You take a look at the latest advisory, we're at 968 millibars, so even the HAFS B model is under forecasting it a little bit. But that's neither here nor there. You can see we really quickly adjust for ourselves and we get back on track, and we've been seeing a slow tug down towards the south. That is very good news for Barbados. Do not take your eyes off this, though. You're playing with grenades here in this situation, and you have a major hurricane just to your immediate south, maybe 50 miles south of your location. It is small, so these tiniest little wobbles back and forth are going to mean the world to you guys. Trinidad and Tobago, the more farther south it jogs, the more you're going to feel impact. Now, you can see the sustained wind core is very small, but I'll use a different color marker here to indicate this is still a very expansive storm. So you're going to realize and feel the effects of this hurricane, regardless of if you're right in that eyewall core of winds or if you're on the outer periphery of that buzzsaw look that we highlighted on satellite, which is why we have tropical storm warnings extending this far to the south and off the chart here this far to the north. This general area, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Martinique, and Grenada are definitely going to have to, or no, St. Lucia, excuse me. St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and then Grenada are going to have to pay very close attention to this because you track it just a little bit further in time, and there it is. So Grenada is looking at seeing some very, very intense impacts right as we're getting ready to roll from the 10 to 11 o'clock time frame, just as we've been mentioning. If you guys have not been writing this down or taking mental notes, we are doing a phenomenal job internally here in the Weather Center with lining up with the consistency that we've been progging on our models. So if you've been paying attention to the National Hurricane Center or not really paying attention to the timing on this, for the last 2 days now, our schedule of events for this system has been wonderful. We've been doing a great job here in the Weather Center with highlighting the generalized local time frame for this system. I've been mentioning from about the lunch hour, we'll say about 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., the lunch hour is when I've been forecasting we'll see the worst impacts hitting you guys in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, possibly Martinique, or no, I keep messing that up, St. Lucia and Grenada. St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Grenada. Those three areas, you're looking at about 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. The worst of the impacts are going to be knocking on your door. And then finally, just like with the Hurricane Center track, 2 p.m., we're getting on the backside of it, and we're finally going to get some reprieve. It's going to move fast. It's going to be in and out quick. The conditions are going to come on fast, but they're going to be gone fast. You can see this is 12 Zulu, 8 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time. We're getting on the outer core of the winds. Then we're inside the winds by 11 o'clock. And then as soon as we get to 2 p.m., we're getting into the weaker side of it. So it's going to move fast. It's going to be moving quickly. We have that going for us. So we just need to hold in place for 6 to 8 hours. I would lean more towards 8 hours because... Okay, so it is under a hurricane warning. Well, regardless, either way, that's what I'm trying to say. As the system begins to expand, no matter how far to the north or to south it is, that entire area is going to feel the impacts of this system. Please, let's not, I've been telling you guys, we can't push ourselves in a corner. Can't look at the black and white lines. We have to forecast looking at a bit of ambiguity, looking at some bleed over, looking at some fuzzy gray blurred lines as opposed to black and white solid lines. Then the 6Z continues it, and notice that this thing does not stop. The key takeaway, if I go back in time, we'll say to Friday, look at the model, you can see that we were expecting some pretty decent weakening from this system as it moved through. Well, the HAFS hasn't. The HAFS A and the other models have been thinking that there was going to be some weakening here. As we get closer to land interaction, we're going to start seeing some weakening, thankfully, but then it's going to re-intensify as it continues to move through. Oh, wow, the HAFS B is taking it way off to the south. The HAFS B is nudging it way off to the south. I haven't looked at this model run this far away. Let me see if we can zoom out a little bit. There we go. So we have the 6Z out in full effect. So yeah, the HAFS B is taking it way off towards the south for sure. And bringing it in as a Cat 4 hurricane to Belize. And see, this is what I've been talking about. If you guys look at our pressure values here in our wind barbs, we have anticyclonic flow down here over the southeast, and there's a clear channel for whatever this is to kind of jog towards the north as this begins to retreat. It's hard to see. You can't see it on this chart, but there is a front coming down like this. There is a front and a trough coming down. This is July 5th. I've been looking at it. In fact, all of these panels here are all upper levels. If you look, this is what I was going to show you guys what I'm looking at. These are all upper level patterns. I even have the frickin' North Pacific and the greater North Atlantic open because I'm trying to get a handle on what the pattern looks like just to give you an idea. That's why for folks who are saying yes, no, stop it. You're lying to people. You're lying to them. There is no yes or no yet for Belize, Central America, the United States. There is no yes or no yet. And that's why I'm over here bashing my head into the desk looking at the North Atlantic, looking at North America, looking at the Northern Pacific. I'm looking at everything. I'm looking at the entire Northern Hemisphere at this point to kind of make a determination of which model is right. The Euro has its biases, the GFS has its biases, so something has to be a little bit more right than the other. And we need to start tracking trends a little bit more big time for the rest of the big picture AOR. You can see the HAFS B, unfortunately, is thinking Category 2 approaching Category 3 strength hurricane coming into the Lesser Antilles. Don't pay too much attention to the intensity just yet, okay? Don't pay too much attention to the intensity. We're looking at the track here, okay? And the track seems to keep this thing headed up towards the north. The thing with this is the further north this goes, the more land interaction it gets, and the greater chance it does have, in fact, hooking back towards the Bahamas, hooking back towards Florida. So this is our wild card. We still have another player on the field. I know all eyes are on this imminent threat, but we have another player on the field that we need to keep giving its a due diligence to. I want to look at the HAFS A model now. Let's take a look at the HAFS A now that we know we have the big picture perspective here. All right, so the HAFS A is severely under forecasting. The HAFS A not doing very good. The HAFS A is calling for a Category 2 hurricane moving in and doesn't really do much with its intensity until after we get past the Windward Islands. Kind of taking the same general track as the HAFS B and taking it up towards the Yucatan. And again, look at the wind flow here, guys. So we can extrapolate. Based on our current data, we can extrapolate. We're moving generally like this. You can see a little dip in the winds associated with the ridge, and then follow the winds and streamline it up. There is going to be a turn to the north at some point. There's the front. You can see it a little bit better on this chart because we go just a smidge further in time. You can see the frontal boundary right there coming down. And if you take this through time and you extrapolate it forward, our system's going to be here in about 6 to 8 hours. So this frontal boundary is going to be somewhere right in through here in about 6 to 8 hours. This system's going to be about here in another 6 to 8 hours. Our frontal system, depending on the progression of the jet and the trough aloft, is going to be somewhere in through here in 6 to 8 hours. And as a result, our anticyclone is slowly but surely going to start to nudge off towards the east. So if you're looking at the general synoptic scale pattern, this is what's going to happen. This is going to come down. This is going to come up, and we could possibly see a little bit of a more northward jog. Now, granted, this is also going to increase the wind shear. This will definitely increase our southwesterly wind shear, and it's going to give it some dry air from on the back side, or I should say the front side of it, so we do have that kind of going with us. This anticyclone is the key to the kingdom for everybody. It is the key to the kingdom for everybody, including the folks directly affected by Beryl, and is also the key to the kingdom with this system. Now, the HAFS A model keeps it south of our general area, still lifting it towards the north. And if you look, this is where it gets very difficult. It gets very difficult here. The anticyclone is breaking down. We no longer have a definitive circulation by July 5th. This lines up with our European, our GFS control guidance for 850, 700, and 500. So our anticyclone is going to be pushed, bullied off towards the east. If we have a developing system down here towards the south, there is going to be some land interaction for sure, but it's going to have the opportunity to lift a bit further towards the northwest. So regardless of what happens up here for the United States, we need to be paying very close attention to the second system for Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, Cayman Islands, the Turks and Caicos, because if we go back in time here, the general takeaway for Beryl, and in fact, I'm actually going to use a highlighter. I haven't used this highlighter feature on here just yet. The general takeaway for Beryl is something along the lines of this. More or less. Somewhere in this general area is where Beryl is expected to go. With this next system coming up, I'll use a different color here. This next system coming up, the general takeaway is much bigger, and it looks like this. And you're already seeing the difference here. I like this a lot. I need to start using this highlighter tool a little bit more. This is going to definitely be handy. So that's why we need to be watching both of these systems, because if you notice, first and foremost, we're seeing a lot of people impact by Beryl already, potentially under the gun for at least a minimum tropical storm as this comes through. We're going to have to see exactly how much further behind Beryl this forms to stay out of its anticyclonic outflow and inducing some localized shear on it. I think that's why the European model is not developing it, because it wants to keep it in close proximity to Beryl. And if you think about it from an atmospheric perspective, we have a lot of anticyclonic outflow, give me my pen back, spewing out of Beryl like so. And this is also going to help to induce some localized wind shear. That's why it's going to be pivotal, because on top of this wind shear, it's creating its own little atmospheric high height center. So as this moves through, it's going to interfere with the ridge, it's going to interfere with the trough over the United States, as well as our Central American monsoonal trough and the East Pac monsoonal trough. So that's going to be pivotal for what happens back behind it. And I know I'm doodling and drawing everywhere, guys, but you're kind of getting what I'm putting down. This is going to be a look at the EPS model. So what I have here pulled up, static image, is right here, 12Z, July 6th. And the reason I have this pulled up is Beryl is here. Our other system is back here on the European model. And if you look, here's our ridge. So even even the Euro is seeing our mid-amplitude trough coming across the Great Lakes, the Midwest. This could possibly bring some severe weather for our areas up there. But notice how it bullies the ridge from its previous position here out here. So if there is something developing down here, moving it along at the same clip as Beryl, it's going to have the opportunity to come a little bit further towards the north. Then it gets tricky. We're playing the timing game, Because if you click just a few more panels down, there goes our protective barrier again by July 9th. So a small window of opportunity for something to do something is all I'm going to say. You take a look at the 850 millibar geopotential heights in our wind flow, and you can see the same thing. If you go back to that same timestamp on the 6th, you can see that there is some pretty decent mid-level flow that indicates here or out here. There might not be as much land interaction. As you can see, our mid-level high height center definitely comes back. See it there? This is early on. This is what's steering Beryl. You can see Beryl down here, but the European model is thinking it's going to start to weaken. This is July 5th. It's making landfall. There's July 6th. We need to be watching out there in Louisiana and Texas. You have to. The European model thinks it's going to die. The European has trash on intensity. The Euro has not been doing good on intensity, so do not put the Euro at the top here. I beg you, don't put the Euro at the top here. We got to go how these models have verified and how they're initializing, and the Euro has not been doing good. So in this case, you want to put it down a couple of pedestals. As much as it stinks to swallow your pride and say, I'm looking at the GFS, just do it. Trust me, the GFS has been doing well on this. And you could see on July 6th, as Beryl potentially crosses the Yucatan and ends up in the BOC, we have a clear path towards Texas and maybe western Louisiana. So if I had to give you a general takeaway here, obviously we're going to see impacts here very soon. We're going to see impacts in Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, possibly Hispaniola, and this entire area here needs to be watching after that. Notice how the spread just continues to grow. It goes from this to this to this. Truthfully, that's kind of what the long range forecast cone looks like. And after that, it is extremely tricky. You can see the GFS is thinking that we're going to have an even greater opportunity for that system to pass towards the north. The GFS is doing a phenomenal job highlighting where our mid-level ridge is. There's the anticyclone. Here comes our trough. So you can see at this point in time, the GFS is also thinking in line with the European model that this thing's going to track up like this and wind up in the BOC, the Bay of Campeche. You fast forward from July 4th, 4th of July, up to the 6th, and there you go. We have an open channel. Wide open channel, so our defensive mechanism here for Louisiana and Texas is gone. So if that system ends up down here like some of our model guidance is thinking, I can definitely believe it taking a northern turn for sure. Nothing set in stone, nothing to panic about, nothing to worry about, okay? But as we get closer in time, this is 138 hours out. We're well inside the realm of realism here. We're not in la-la land, so we need to be paying attention. And then after that, if you go to the 7th, GFS is still thinking that our ridge is not going to build back as fast. There it starts to build back in by July 9th, July 10th. So our models are in unison thinking that there is going to be some exposure as Beryl moves through. There is going to be a period of time where the entire Gulf Coast from West Florida to Texas becomes open for if we have another developing system. If we have another developing system, if models hold true to the trough coming through, if Beryl continues to move off towards the west-northwest, taking more of like a Dean track that we saw way back in the day. You can see it in our 500 millibar height anomalies. There it is on July 5th. That's our protective blister. Here comes our positively tilted trough coming through, and it's going to nudge the ridge. You see that? That's the opening. This is what we need to watch for, guys. There's our trough. The European model weakens it, but you can see a clear change. I'll go back in time just a little bit right there, back to July 5th. There's the ridge access right here. Ridge is here over the southeast. There's your protection. There's that heat dome that's been alluded to in the chat a couple of times. You go forward 2 days, and you go ahead and draw the ridge axes again, and we are now out over the western Atlantic over Bermuda. That's not good. That's not good because that can allow a second system. I'm not saying the second system, so please don't try to manipulate my words. No wordplay this morning. That's if, not the, it's a second system coming on in here. So there is going to be a weakness in our ridge at some point. It's that timing game, guys. This is what happens. Just because one looks like it's going to do this doesn't mean the next one's going to do this. It could go and do this. You never know. The GFS had it doing that last night. If you come over to the GFS and take a look at 6Z, we'll go back here. or I mean at 0Z, excuse me, the 0Z GFS had it hitting Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic and shooting up and out like that. See that? That's why I'm saying this is a wild card. This is a huge wild card, and we need to pay attention to both of these systems for a number of different people. You go to the 6Z, and the 6Z has it back in the Caribbean coming up. So there's going to be a lot of wiggle room for sure. There's going to be a lot of wiggle room, and we need to pay close attention to both of these systems for sure. If you look back over the United States, what's going to be tricky is the intensity of our jet max moving into this trough. This trough is what's going to be pivotal here. Right now, looking at our EPS, the European ensembles, we don't have as strong of a polar front or subtropical jet coming through, and we still have our ridge down here parked over the southeast. You go forward just a little bit in time, though, and again, you can see we went from there. I'll change the color. We went from there to here. So we are going to see an opening. You see how the trough is nudging it off towards the east? That's going to open us up. We still have very good anticyclonic flow down here. There is a tut coming in, but at July 7th, our tropical system down there should just be on the tut or be beyond the tut out there over the Atlantic. So, and then over the eastern Pacific, I'm looking back in time to see exactly how strong the trough axes could be building down, to get an idea of how we're initializing back here. So we'll have to wait and see. Yes, I see some folks in the chat mentioning wave heights. Let's go ahead and go over to our wave heights. Let me go to a different website real quick. I don't want College of DuPage. What am I doing? I want weather models. First off, let's take a look at the 6Z European model. The 6Z Euro should be in by now. I just want to see what it's doing. See if it's caught up to itself. Dear God, yeah, see, for you guys out there saying the euro, throw this thing in the garbage. What the heck is that? This is the latest European model, and this thing has it as a tropical storm. Come on. Come on. You guys can sit here and debate with me all you want, but euro is garbage right now. It's a fairly reliable model, but if you see any other weather source out there leading the way with the euro, tell them to stop, turn it off, because the euro is no. No, everybody look at that very closely. Look at that, and I'll zoom in. I will zoom in, because I'm also seeing that there's updates from National Hurricane Center, updates from recon data. If you look at the European model there, guys, that is not good. That is horrible. Horrible. Euro is garbage. I'm going to debate that with you right now, PM. I see your comment. Euro is not garbage. What is that? And I'm getting angry at this point because that's a fallacy. Everyone swears by this model, and this thing is under forecasting it by 30 millibars. It's under forecasting it by 30. It's calling for a tropical storm. If we were to use this and forecast it, what the heck? This leads me to believe that we have too dominant of a ridge now on the European model because it's doing all kinds of lopsided things with the pressures. That is horrible. I would not even look at this model. That's like the NavGem or the JMA right there. What does it do after that? So the euro is starting to develop our upstream system. It's starting to develop our upstream system there, and that is very interesting. Here comes the high pressure, getting ready to nudge it off towards the east. So at least we catch up a little bit. This actually is a little bit more concerning. In fact, it's doing absolutely horrible out there in the Atlantic, but then what's really weird is it starts to strengthen it where all of our other models are thinking it's supposed to weaken a little bit. It strengthens it down to a Cat 4 as it's on approach to Jamaica. And we are starting to finally see development in our upstream system. So if you want to pay attention with the euro, then, that's fine. It's starting to show some development back there, moving through, so we really need to pay close attention for sure. I don't know what the heck the European model's problem is. This is 12Z, guys. This is 8 a.m. This is when we started the live stream, and we have a 999 millibar tropical storm out there. No. Throw it out. Maybe for track guidance, absolutely. If you want to use it for the track, absolutely. But you definitely want to use other models for sure. There's been such rapid fluctuations with it, too. Yesterday at 12Z, we finally saw it get on the ball. But I don't know what is going on with this thing now. This thing it's dorking up big time. It's broken, at least until this thing gets into the Caribbean, and then it maintains intensity. And then you can see our upstream system is starting to develop for sure. But all right, guys, we're going to start getting ready to end the live stream. I got to get going. It's 8:45. I'm probably going to have to do an abrupt end to this live stream so I can make it to church. We got to roll out the door here immediately. Here go our ensembles. Look at that. We're going to have to watch AL 96. Look at the Euro there. I know it's stuck. It's in between. But look at this northern nudge here. Northern nudge, northern nudge. We need to watch both of these systems, guys, and that's going to be the key takeaway. We'll see you again more than likely tonight once everything's all said and done. I have another midterm exam to get through, so I need to plug that into my schedule before I can get back here in the Weather Center with you folks. It's 45 after. Please like this live stream. Nudge that like button. Let's get the likes up. Please comment down below if you have any additional questions or comments that you need me to get to. I know I apologize. I missed a couple of you guys' questions. I'm kind of on a time crunch here, but I wanted to get this information out to you. 12Z is going to be very informative. 12Z with the recon data is going to be very informative with both of these systems, this and this, because the European model in terms of track, I can see it. I can see it right there. We're starting to see ensembles moving up like this, and we're seeing ensembles moving up like this. So we need to pay both these storms their attention and give them the respect that they deserve. Much love to you guys. Our folks out there in the islands, the next time I see you, we're probably going to be getting ready for the worst. So next time I see you, if you have the means of tuning in, please come and join us. Cling to a reliable weather source, even if it isn't us here in the Weather Center, but we'll talk to you guys again soon. Please consider hitting that subscribe button. Drop me a comment down below if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Drop me a line on my private social media, my X, my Instagram, my TikTok. I'll strike up a conversation with each and every one of you, answer questions to the best of my ability. I'm going to be gone for about an hour and a half, 2 hours because of church, but I will get back to you guys very soon. In the meantime, we'll talk to you again later. This is Weather Center Nazario.